Yesterday, I sat down with Michael Moore at the Tribeca Cinema here in New York.
So I'm not really, I don't want to say publicly yet how we actually got there, but I actually do have a boat in the movie you see, and we are actually in Guantanamo Bay, and you probably have never seen anybody actually sail into Guantanamo Bay. You will, when you see the movie, see this, for the first time, and I'm the skipper.
Were you afraid of the mines, or what you thought might be mines?
Actually, I was more afraid of what they were pointing at us in the guard tower there on the U.S. side of this demarcation line that's in the bay, and I have to say, I want to tell you, I think I can say this much: the Cuban government was not exactly happy with my idea here of sailing into Guantanamo Bay, because they did not want an incident that would provoke the Americans or give them an excuse to do something against Cuba. And especially because it was me, the Cubans perceive that Mr. Bush doesn't like me very much, and so here I am suddenly, tweaking their nose in Guantanamo Bay, and anything could happen. So we had to really actually talk quite a bit to the Cubans to letting us use their waters to get up close to the American waters there in the bay.
Is that area mined?
Yeah, well, that's what they say. Yes, yes. Yes, well, they believe the Americans have mined it, for so that no Cubans can get in there. I don't know what the
Cubans trying to break into Guantanamo to the prison.
Hey, don't ask me to explain the actions of the U.S. military. I don't know what the Cubans do. I hate to say this, but when we were there, it doesn't look like there's a huge Cuban defense force should the Americans ever decide to actually invade again, at least that route. But I'm sure they've got something planned if the Americans ever did that.
The emergency workers who you took to Cuba, talk about the healthcare system there.
Well, when they say that there's a doctor in every block, that's not a cliche. I mean, they're really. Cuba per capita has so many more doctors than we have. There's been a doctor shortage in America for a long time, and it's been pretty much because the AMA doesn't want any more students in medical schools here, because they believe that if they keep the number of doctors low, those doctors get more money, as opposed to if we had a whole bunch of doctors, you'd have to share the pie a little more. So. But the Cuban doctors, the Cuban healthcare system, I was very impressed with it. All the people we took down there were extremely happy with the treatment that they received. But they focus a lot on prevention, and because they do that, they end up not having to spend a lot of money on their healthcare. They don't have the money. It's a very poor country, as you know. And I was very impressed, and with what little they have to use with their healthcare system. They end up living longer than we do. They have a better infant mortality rate than we do. A number of issues, they're the same or better than us.
I'm Amy Goodman as we return to our interview with Academy Award-winning filmmaker Michael Moore. His new film, SiCKO, is being released in thousands of theaters next week. I asked Michael about the United States being ranked 37th in the world for its quality of health care.
Yes, we're behind Costa Rica, but ahead of Slovenia. And that's according to the World Health Organization. It's pretty pathetic when the richest country on earth is ranked number 37.
Michael Moore, you look at really four places: France, Britain, Cuba, you spend time in, and then you go visit your relatives in Canada.
Yes.
Talk about these places and what each one has. You talked to, for example, Tony Benn, the parliamentarian, the MP in Britain. Talk about what they have and how they originated. Then we'll talk about how we got what we have here. Okay.
Well, the Canadians, they have a very good system that covers everyone, and the people are very happy with it. Basically, you pay for nothing. You choose your own doctor. You need to go to the hospital, you choose your own hospital. So there's freedom of choice, and you'll hear the critics of the Canadian system here talk about all the Canadians. You have to wait in line, you know, before you can get a knee replacement. You have to wait X number of weeks, you know, where you don't have to wait in America. And, you know, when I hear that, I think, well, that's what you do when you have to share the pie. Sometimes you have to wait. You know, it's like, I guess that's not in our American mentality where, you know, to wait. You know, no, I want it now. Well, you know, sometimes when you, like I said, when you're sharing the pie, you get the first slice. You don't have to wait. Sometimes you get the third slice. Sometimes you get the last slice. But the important thing to remember is everyone gets a slice. That's not the way it is here in this country. Now, the British system is really government owned in the sense that the government owns and runs the hospitals. The government employs the doctors, and so they work for the government. So it's very much a government owned and run and controlled program in Britain. And again, you know, everything is free, and you see the hospitals in the film. People are very happy with it. And you know, if you know anybody that's ever traveled to these countries, that has had an experience of having to go into a Canadian hospital or British hospital, I mean, like the one woman says in the film, you know, she thought it was going to be some dingy, horrible, you know, like out of a Dickens novel or you know, the old Soviet Union or something, and she went in there and it was like, wow, this is incredible. France, though, is probably, if not the best, near the best of what we saw. I mean,
still on Britain. Want to just play a clip?
This guy broke his ankle. How much will this cost him? He'll have some huge bill when he's done, right?
Here, NHS, everything is free.
I'm asking about hospital charges, and you're laughing. Even with insurance, there's bound to be a bill somewhere. What'd they charge you for that baby?
No. Everything's on.
This is NHS.
So, yeah, you know,
No,
it's not America.
So this is where people come to pay their bill when they're done staying in the hospital.
No, this is the NHS hospital, so you don't pay the bill.
Why does it say cashier here if people don't have to pay a bill?
Those who have reduced means get their travel expenses reimbursed.
So in British hospitals, instead of money going into the cashier's window, money comes out. Yeah, they look at me like I'm from Mars when I'm asking the Brits, you know, how much they you know, paid for, you know, this, that, or whatever.
We're talking to Michael Moore. Let's talk about how we arrived at the system we did in this country.
Well, you know, my grandfather was a country doctor, actually. He was from Canada. He went to medical school in the late 1800s, which was a year then. You know, it's about pretty much what they knew back then. They could teach it in a year. And so the little village where, you know, I was raised, because my mom was from there too, because he was there. And, you know, he was paid with eggs and milk and chickens and things like that. He didn't do it to make any big money. They didn't make big money then. They were comfortable, the local doctor, but they weren't the rich man in the community. We got away from the concept of treating people because it was the right thing to do. The nuns ran the hospital that I was born in. The nuns weren't doing this to turn profit and invest in Wall Street. You know, I mean, they did it because they thought that was their duty to serve God and serve mankind by opening hospitals and delivering babies.
I'm Amy Goodman. Our website's democracynow.org. Check it out for the full interview. Thanks for joining us.